Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special episode of TF Labs. We're doing a live stream and we're going to be talking about Bitcoin. I'm excited because I got some friends here with me and we're just going to be just having a good time talking about what's happening in Bitcoin. You probably have been seeing it's been going up quite a bit and it passed its all-time high. So with that, I'm going to have my friends join me and we'll have a good conversation. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hi. Hey, why doesn't everybody just introduce themselves really quick? Pat, why don't you go first? I'll just go in the order that you're all on the screen.
Sure. Hi, I'm Pat Larson, CEO, co-founder of ZenLedger. We help individuals and tax professionals with cryptocurrency tax filings, kind of like the TurboTax for cryptocurrency. I used to be a Navy helicopter pilot. I've been in finance and tech.
Awesome. Justin, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Justin Wu. I'm a growth marketer in the space. We just work as a consultant and alongside with different projects such as like AirSwap, Matic Network, and upcoming DeFi projects as well that are still yet to be launched. And happy to share my perspective here from the community growth marketing perspective.
Excellent. Carlos.
Hi, my name is Carlos Betancourt, and I'm the founding principal of BK Coin Capital. We're a digital asset hedge fund, and I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And I'm Jonathan, founder of TF Labs. We put on conferences, events, and do some consulting in the Bitcoin crypto space. And actually, here's Mitchell.
Hey,
Mitchell, what's up, man? We're just doing some introductions. Would you mind introducing yourself to everybody?
Yeah, I'm Mitchell. I am the editor-in-chief at Crypto Briefing.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much. So everybody, we are live right now and we are ready to take on any of your questions that you might have. This is the first time that we're doing this type of conversation. This is less of a panel and this is more of just a group conversation. We're going to be talking about what's going on in Bitcoin, what's been happening over the last couple of weeks and where we think things are headed. So we really want you to be active participants in the conversation. So to start out, do us a favor. If you're watching this, just give us a little thumbs up or a like. And also just tell us where you're watching from. But yeah, doing a quick little retweet goes a long way so we get more people watching us here. So who wants to start? What's been happening with Bitcoin? We've been kind of doing this like rocket ship since, I don't know, call it October, like middle of October or so. And then all of a sudden we just had like this massive push over the last couple of weeks, right? Carlos, what's been happening? I know you play with the numbers.
Yeah.
I'm eager to talk to you guys about that. Well, I think for the most part, obviously, we've had a very strange year, and I think everything that has come with that has been positive for all markets, not just crypto markets. But then again, as you guys have seen, the maturity of our asset class, we're actually looking at a lot of new folks and new faces from traditional finance taking a little bite of the apple, if you will. And I think that that's helped tremendously. But more importantly, we're very far along compared to even 2 years ago. And I think that growth in the space from everywhere from custody to folks like Pat, for example, that are working very diligently to provide taxes and tax help for an individual, whether it's a retail investor or an institution. I think those are certain things that we didn't have 2 years ago, and that's helping tremendously. And it's less about the FOMO and more about actual participants really looking for alpha and looking to deploy capital and in an asset that's completely uncorrelated from anything else out there.
It definitely feels different this time around than 2017, and you touched on it, right? Like there are sophisticated institutions and individuals getting into the space, billionaires, Logic the rapper. There's you have the Paul Tudor Jones of the world. You have the John, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the second richest man in Mexico just got in recently. and institutions. There's all this talk about PayPal, and people are kind of shitting on it a little bit, but like that's made some difference there. Any thoughts on that, anybody?
Yeah, I think you just look at the max chart for Bitcoin price, and basically, what is it? Since September 2017, spent almost all the time above 5,000, which is amazing. Think about it. And then since April 2019, like a ton of time above 10,000, right? And that's just, I think it just shows there's just a lot of support. You see a huge sell-off because there's still a high beta, right? In March, along with everything else. But I think it's really inspiring that the markets came back so quickly from 19,000 to 16.5 back to 19,000. So there's just a lot of appetite to buy what people are selling what they thought was the top, right? When we got to a historical all-time high. So I think it doesn't feel like 2017 with all the ICOs and all the marketing activity that went on. There's not hundreds of projects spending millions of dollars individually just shilling tokens, right?
Yeah.
It feels like there's a lot more rails there with very large companies like Robinhood and Cash App and Coinbase has grown tremendously. And it seems like a lot more Bitcoin is locked up and is not liquid at this point.
Yeah, to add to Pat, even announcements like today with Visa as well. I think once you start seeing some of these big heavy hitters coming into the space, it's very hard to ignore, right? Not to mention that the return profile on Bitcoin by itself, it's been tremendous. So I think moving on to 2021, we're going to continue seeing more traditional faces coming in, pouring into the space, and hopefully taking it to the next step.
Totally. And Mitchell, what are you seeing, man? You're reporting on this stuff daily. How's that kind of stuff going? How's traffic, and how are people searching a little bit differently? Because there's been a lot of memes out there saying that how like Bitcoin's going up, but searches for Bitcoin aren't necessarily going up. Which I feel like when you start seeing it on CNN and all these other traditional media outlets, like that's the search has to be starting.
Yeah, the price increases we've seen this year so far have mostly been driven by institutional players and by companies purchasing stakes for like their treasuries or larger investors. So in terms of like 2017 mainstream type investors, we're still not at the levels that we were 3 years ago. So that can be a good thing or a bad thing. It means that mainstream investors have not engaged with the market activity yet. So there could be more room to go up, but it also could mean that the current bull market could lose momentum and could just stagnate. So good and bad.
Yeah.
I think that, like right now, even with like 19,000, 20, up close to 20,000 Bitcoin, it's still not exciting for some mainstream. So it's like, what's the numbers going to take them to be interested in Bitcoin? And if the number is too high, maybe they feel like it's too intimidating. And that's where we see some other smaller priced coins see some action and uplift that are, other selections and choices on Coinbase with like Stellar, Ripple, Litecoin, etc. Seeing kind of like huge spikes as Bitcoin just kind of like been chilling out. But overall, yeah, like from my perspective of working with a lot of different upcoming projects, I've seen there's been a lot of activity in terms of DeFi, and DeFi coming in the sense that even though it's like Ethereum based, but the introduction of like wrapped Bitcoin is just locking up more Bitcoin. People just kind of like converting and just like sitting and holding and getting kind of like their DeFi farms has kind of brought a lot of interest from the bigger players to want to participate there, and we can kind of see that happening with like over 15 billion TVL in just the DeFi space alone, which just adds in more use cases for just like crypto overall, whether it be Bitcoin and altcoins, etc. Versus like in 2017, again, all the newer projects were just still all brand new piece of paper, white paper ideas. Now we have a little bit more maturity where there are interesting products now that people can use or get stake yield that provide more use cases and legs now to grow the industry as well. So I think that there's a lot more happening now than there were previously. And we're seeing PayPal coming in, then Facebook, Libra or Deem, whatever you're calling it now, coming in January potentially as well too. So it's like a slow progression now where like these bigger companies are now paying attention and trying to like bring in their own digital currencies, which can only try to help flip regulation. I think regulation, if we can flip regulation with the upcoming administration, hopefully, we'll kind of trend it in the right direction. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, none of us here are political analysts, but do you guys think the just kind of how the election played out, did that have anything to do with why Bitcoin started to charge up?
I mean, I think one thing is you still have to see what happens in the Senate. So 50 seats for Democrats leaves open the possibility of actual legislation being passed and like crypto taxation, crypto regulation, or just the raising of taxes. I think one reason you see like there's still a desire for stimulus, but there's probably no desire for raising taxes, right? Even if you just have 50 Democrats, there will be a couple like purple ones, and you won't see a raise in taxes, which is, I think, what the markets mostly responded to. Carlos, do you have a thought there?
My thinking, I mean, regardless of what would have happened in the election, I think everybody's set in stone, and we're going to see more stimulus, and in general, that's going to be good for the space. It's just a matter of the number, and at the end of the day, whether it's Republican and it's maybe in the 1 billion or a smaller range, or Democrat and you get more. At the end of the day, I think a lot of the folks that came into crypto this year are really looking very hard at it being a safe haven asset or a hedge against inflation. And if we keep printing, I guess the writing's on the wall. I kind of want to go back to one of Dustin's comments because I want to get everybody's thoughts on DeFi. I particularly like following DeFi, even though we don't participate in DeFi markets as a company, as a hedge fund. But I just want to get your thoughts because to me, DeFi, where it stands today, is very reminiscent of maybe 2 or 3 years ago when all of the ICOs were kind of coming along and everybody was raising money, but we still didn't have the infrastructure that we have today, right? So there's maybe no more than a handful of DeFi players that people trust or that haven't been hacked. So I'm just curious to kind of see, one, from a tax perspective, Pat, what your thoughts are on DeFi, but also Mitchell and Justin, what do you think is going to happen in the next year or so with DeFi? And do you think that it'll mature as quickly as we have matured, I guess, over the past 2 or 3 years?
Mitchell, you have thoughts there?
Yeah, I do. So our research division has made several buy recommendations on a few DeFi projects. And I'll say this to you, Carlos, it might be a little bit reminiscent to 2017 in terms of the valuations of some of these projects, but the major difference here is that they actually have products. They actually have users. People are using these protocols like Uniswap, SushiSwap, and they're generating revenue. So to make it completely analogous to 2017 is a bit ridiculous because they actually have businesses now. How can you compare something that is completely fictitious, some vaporware, versus
when I said that, it was more of, even looking 2 years ago, there wasn't as many custodians as we have today. We actually had to go through a lot of meetings and calls with custodians because they didn't really have a product that would service active traders, right? Active hedge funds. They had great products if you wanted to just hold your cryptocurrencies in cold storage and you just kind of sit and wait. But they weren't very good in terms of, hey, I need my money now to place a trade. And you would have to wait hours at a time to get your coins. I think with DeFi, you can think of Compound as an example, but there's other pools out there that who is behind them and where's the money stored, and it just kind of creates a little bit of uncertainty, if you will. So I'm kind of curious as to what you guys think and if you guys are actively participating in DeFi.
Well, so on that too, though, like, how much does DeFi get to piggyback off of Bitcoin success, right? Like, in the sense of, is it really just people interest from an investment perspective? Is it people wanting to try to emulate a Bitcoin like experience from a gains perspective? Mitchell, you look like you want to say something on that.
Well, why don't you flip the question? How much is Bitcoin benefiting from DeFi success?
You think so?
I like that.
I mean, honestly, look at a lot of these. I'm just going to take Uniswap because I think they're a prime example of a profound product that has a material impact on the overall crypto space. Now, if you are a new cryptocurrency project and you want to start something and you need to be listed and you want liquidity, Uniswap can allow you to do that and gain access to a user base and liquidity without any KYC and also without any listing fees. Like, it is wholly democratized access to a lot of these smaller projects and has made operating in this space a lot easier if you are trying to actually make a product.
No.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think the DeFi space is still super new, but there's a lot of development happening, and it's happening at a very rapid pace. There's still like new concepts that haven't been rolled out, like decentralized credit, decentralized loans, insurance, different tranche systems as well too, that are all very experimental still, and we're just at the start of it. What we're seeing very rapidly now, though, is that despite that there's being scams and rug pulls every single day, and investors losing $10 million at a time, there's still an excitement, weird excitement, and that's kind of like a weird expected norm, which is a little bit weird compared to like what happened in 2017, where if one project vaporized with 10 million, it would have like crashed or pulled down the market overall with it. But this very, the DeFi front runners are still supporting and pushing it along. And I think what we're seeing now is we're seeing a little bit more consolidation in the fact with like Yearn doing all these mergers with a lot of other top projects. But also too, we're seeing more like less anonymous projects, which is great for what we're seeing in terms of maturity, where more trust is moving away from, again, like random white papers to a little bit more proven people that can put their name and their team behind the project, behind like SushiSwap, Sam, and all these other upcoming projects as well too. So I think that it's exciting, and I think that in the fact that like Coinbase was like quick to like instantly list like Uniswap and these other upcoming DeFi tokens, has showed the importance and disruption that DeFi has in the overall like crypto space and trust overall. So I think that it does have a profound effect in Bitcoin, and especially like Wrapped Bitcoin now has helped people who would have held Bitcoin, but package it up in ERC20 and still farm and still invest or participate in these DeFi products has been a huge effect, and I think that it's only bringing the market up overall with more use cases.
So, someone touch on that, on Wrapped Bitcoin. Like, what does that mean?
Well, you get a custodian and you give them your Bitcoin, and they say, okay, we're going to issue you a token, and you have a right to that Bitcoin now. So I don't know. I have my own problems with Wrapped Bitcoin because you still have to trust somebody. So that's problematic, but it basically allows you to get access to the Ethereum ecosystem and to different DeFi projects.
Yeah. Nice. Well, yeah, we want to open up the questions, so make sure that you're feel free to asking them as we come up. I'm going to touch on a couple of them real quick. So Matt is asking, we talked about this a little bit, is how much does what's going on with Bitcoin have to do with like instability in the overall market, right? The money printer, there's trillions of dollars have been printed. Is there loss of confidence in fiat as a store of value? What do you guys all think about that? It obviously plays some factor in it.
I think what you're seeing is just an everything asset bubble, right? So if you just have more dollars, but you have the same amount of stuff, then everything costs more because like it's limited goods instead of limited money to buy those goods, right? So it's going into public equity markets very clearly. It's rampaging through the housing markets because there's scarcity because people can't sell their homes. But the one time a house goes on sale, it's bid on by a 2-doctor couple, a 2-lawyer couple, and it goes to highest bidder. It's like one first-class seat being sold on an airline, right? So the home prices are still there, just because it's low volume. Well, I guess the volume is even coming back at this point.
I think it depends on which assets, though. Like, you're seeing lower consumer demand because of COVID. So products like tangible goods are still the same price or decreasing, and inflation remains relatively low. But you're seeing stock prices and housing prices, like you mentioned, going up, like yield providing assets.
Yeah. I think people are kind of shorting the dollar in that way, right? So when you buy an asset that you hope is appreciating, you're hoping it's appreciating against dollars. That's the whole point of buying a share of stock or a token, right? So I think you are seeing that, and it's interesting because the world's going through a couple kind of modern novel ideas, right? Modernity is only like 100 years old, right? The last, it's not that new that we've had global markets and a bunch of technology. So we're figuring out like how money printing works with like 3 or 4 central banks printing as fast as they can, and money being globally, shiftable around, right? People can move it wherever they want, which is also interesting. And so I think, the people who were already into Bitcoin have had nothing but confirmation, bias, like piling on more, right? The more smart people are saying it's a good bet, diversify your portfolio into it. Investment banks that really have no stake in hyping up Bitcoin are releasing reports with higher price targets, which is interesting. I'm not sure what the dynamic is there. I don't think I never think it's analyst integrity that drives those reports.
They're calling great.
Yeah. So, or maybe JP Morgan's like fixing to buy Coinbase or something. So
I always like to compare things to, some countries in Latin America, and we always bring up Venezuela as an example. And you go to Venezuela today, and the entire economy is dollarized. You go to a kiosk to purchase your newspaper, and you pay in US dollars down there. Before there was actual US dollars in circulation, everybody was exchanging crypto or looking for ways to exchange crypto, those who had the opportunity to do so. I think we're going to start seeing that more and more with other economies like Argentina as another example. But I think you guys are totally right. I think the more we continue printing, I think a lot of people are really paying closer attention, not just to Bitcoin, but maybe other coins as well that they deem a good place to hold value, I guess. And in addition to that, I think some of the money that we've printed hasn't necessarily been delivered to small businesses, as an example. And we had Secretary Mnuchin speak earlier today saying, hey, we still haven't deployed all that capital. When will they get it? I'm not sure, but I think a lot of small businesses are suffering, and probably they should move quickly to help them out and aid them.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And it's, you brought up Venezuela. That's definitely a use case that comes up quite a bit. Carlos and I are actually both from Venezuela, so we're familiar with that use case quite a bit. I do think it gets overplayed personally, because there's massive infrastructure systemic issues in the place. But nonetheless, yes, it is better than, of course, holding, fiat.
I think that goes back to the point of how many people are really participating in crypto right now too, right? Like DeFi is super hot, super buzzworthy, but there's not that many people participating in it. It's arcane, and it's whales still dominating, right? I think what's different in character between the ICO craze is ICOs was, I'm just going to keep selling my bag to the next people, right? Like, I don't care. I'm just getting in here, and there's going to be a sucker that's going to come along, and I'm going to dump this bag on them. and I'm going to get a quick 2x or whatever. Whereas in DeFi, it is you have to produce real results. You have to show revenue streams. You have to show real adoption. It's verifiable whether these guys have traction. There's still a rug pull. To Justin's point, there's still exit scams, but the ICO craze was basically just a 1 year delayed rug pull. Whereas in DeFi, the rug pulls happen sooner. It's a shorter feedback loop.
And here's the thing: the rug pull might not even be intentional and be like, oh, we forgot this critical bug in our contract. All the money's gone.
Yeah. Thanks for the bug bounty.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, people watching, please feel free to ask questions as they come up. So let's talk a little bit about just the institutions. So institutions are getting in, and apparently that's part of the main driver of what has been bringing Bitcoin up. And again, and same with these billionaires, right? You have billionaires buying large positions in companies, MicroStrategy, Square. Was it Square? I always get Square Stripe. Yeah, Square. Having a huge position in it, and they look pretty smart now, right? Like I remember when the MicroStrategy guy put in, I think he bought in at like 9,500, and people were like, "This is crazy! Like, how are you going to do that?" And he basically doubled his treasury.
That's the trade of the century, right there. I mean,
yeah.
He had board control, so he disclosed that he owned 10 million of Bitcoin at the time. So it's the ultimate shill.
I thought. I mean, I'm a big fan. I think one of the things he did was also disclose his personal holdings, and he only disclosed that after the fact that they went in and invested. I think it was an incredible play, and I mean, you have folks like Skybridge right now filing an SEC amendment to invest in Bitcoin. Guggenheim also looking to invest with Grayscale. You have so many good products now. CME absolutely tearing it up in terms of what they've been doing. So I think there is a lot more investable products out there that we didn't have just a few months ago, if you will, and it's really making a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Who else? What you got?
What are the questions?
Carlos, you'd asked about tax implications.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was wondering if you had any clients that that you're servicing, and if they have participating in DeFi, and kind of how that works.
Yeah, so a lot of our customers have significant assets. That's why they're willing to pay for the software, but also they've engaged a tax professional, usually a CPA, and then sometimes also a lawyer as a tax expert. So they're a lot of times they are doing pretty sophisticated things. And in general, what happens is you go and you put your Bitcoin in BlockFi, and then you'll earn interest in Bitcoin. And so at time of receipt of that interest, that's income, and that's interest income, standard income. And then once you received that Bitcoin, say January 1st, you receive 1 Bitcoin in interest, the clock starts on the long or short-term capital gains of that Bitcoin. So if you sell it in 6 months, it's short-term capital gains. And if you sell it in a year plus a day, it's long-term capital gains. And that's most of the tax implications for DeFi. With Ethereum 2, the switchover will be non-taxable, Ethereum to Ethereum 2, but the staking will be taxable, just like income and capital gains, but it won't happen until you gain control of the asset. So like 2 years from now or something.
Right. Pay attention, guys. Whoever's listening in, make sure you file your taxes.
Yeah, so tax loss harvesting is coming up in December. We help with that, and that's like a smart thing to do. If you got into DeFi early and you took a bath and then you sold it at the bottom, and you have those losses to put to your Bitcoin gains, then congratulations. But like you can offset some of the gains that we're all having now with some of the losses you had, or who knows, the next 30 days there may be another like short 10% downturn, but you're still a believer, and so you can like sell December 31st, buy back in January 1st, and capture a tax loss asset and still have your crypto.
Awesome.
I'm muted.
I've seen a question that's come up a few times with the BlockFi's new Bitcoin back card.
Oh, yeah.
I'm stoked for that, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of people are excited, but they're curious about tax implications of those cashback rewards, whether they'd be considered a discount on purchases or if they would have some other sort of basis when they receive that Bitcoin on purchase.
Yeah, I think that'll have to be hashed out. I don't think there's. I mean, I've seen a couple other places where they've structured the cashback as a discount or something, so it didn't have to be considered income. So you don't have a bunch of people like claiming they got $17 of income this year from American Airlines or something, right? So they avoided that mess there. But airline miles and cashback rewards aren't appreciating assets. And a financial, so I think it's going to be tough to hash this out. Most people have such small rewards that they won't really care. Is the other thing, like, so the government won't care because they'll be under whatever threshold that matters to really hash out this issue to start. And again, with 48 senators or 50 senators, like, are they going to tackle this stuff? Are they going to care about it enough? I would think that legislation and regulation are still going to stay in a gray area for a while, and we'll kind of see other jurisdictions in the world like Crypto Valley in Switzerland or something, or Singapore, if they race ahead and kind of force the U.S.'s hand, because I personally don't see our Congress passing comprehensive crypto regulation, taxation legislation.
Not anytime soon. I mean, do you remember the Facebook panels or whatever when they were like, is this how the internet works, basically? So yeah, it doesn't look like that'll happen anytime soon. But it becomes a competition issue, right? Like, it becomes an innovation and competition issue if we don't do those things.
Yeah, I mean, at some point people care, right? So if you have 40 million Americans that hold, call it 250 billion of crypto at this point, like probably have half the world's crypto, maybe more, right? That becomes significant. If you think that 1 or 2% churns as income or capital gains tax per year, that's billions of dollars that the federal government or state governments like New York and California are losing out on at a time when there's tight budget. So I think at some point people start caring.
I think you're absolutely right. When it comes to taxes, that's when they start caring. We could add up all of our ages in this live stream, and that'll probably be the average age of a congressman. And I think that's the biggest divide that we have in our country. I think, when you're grilling somebody and you don't even understand the subject matter, you kind of lose credibility right there. And I think some of these folks in the Senate just don't understand what this is about. And we are losing to several Asian countries, several European countries when it comes to pushing regulation. We'll see what happens. I'm still optimistic that we'll kind of get somewhere with at the very least a digital dollar, a real digital dollar. But we'll see. I think you guys are right. I think it's going to take a little bit longer.
So Carlos is advocating for a technocratic overthrow, which I second.
Well, when you see, call it these name brand institutions getting involved, your PayPal's, your JP Morgan Chase, was it Citibank that said 380 Bitcoin at 380K a couple weeks ago? So what does that do, you think, from a legislative standpoint? Does that even matter? Does that even play a factor? Or is that more just, I don't want to say market manipulation, but market influence?
I think it was a marketing document, right? There can't be any rigor behind their price target.
I was going to say, just some random analyst, I wouldn't take it too seriously.
It was, I guess, quote unquote, research paper. But then again,
I need one of you guys to create a research paper and say it's going to go just to double down.
Well, they went after McAfee, so that's a problem.
Yeah, and he was supposed to do something, but that he never lived up to.
Yeah, I mean, he was supposed to do something, then he went to jail. So
Did he get apprehended?
Yes.
He did. So
They did? I didn't hear that.
He ran around. So he fled to Belize
Yeah.
and very publicly did a bunch of securities, violations, while also publicly evading taxes. So he kind of said, "Hey, IRS, SEC, come at me," right?
No,
And they did. They arrested him in Spain, and I think he's awaiting extradition. But the Department of Justice put out a full statement saying that he's looking at millions in fines and decades of jail for all of it. Because he kind of stood up in front of the world and said, "I'm flouting all the laws." Right? There's like nothing untouched here that I'm. So
stayed on his yacht in the Bahamas, I guess.
Yeah. Well, according to his accounts, they were sending black helicopters after him.
Can't stay in the Bahamas forever.
Yeah.
So someone in the thread, Luke is asking about Brian's tweet about legislators and Trump. I didn't hear about that. I'm assuming that's Brian Armstrong. You guys know what's going on there?
Yeah, it's Brian Armstrong.
What happened there?
Time tweet probably right before Thanksgiving.
Well, he stopped. He took down all the derivatives last week on the platform because of a regulatory statement. So he publicly posted about why there needs to be more regulatory clarity. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that the next Secretary of Treasury is going to honor much of what Mnuchin's doing, right? Like I don't quite understand it.
Yeah.
By the way, did you guys know that Mnuchin is one of the producers of Lego Batman? Just a fun fact.
What?
Yeah, I was watching Lego Batman with my son, and all of it says like the producers on there is like Steve Mnuchin. So of course I look it up real quick. So
takes money to make money, man.
Yeah, Secretary.
I think if Coinbase is thinking about halting derivative trading, maybe they can spend some time in fixing their exchange so that it doesn't go down every time there's
unreal how that happens every single time. So I think I tweeted this, I can't remember, but Coinbase is way too sophisticated of a company to have those types of outages every time there's a massive change in the market, because that happened in 2017 all the time, and basically every massive change it breaks, which I just can't imagine any one of our businesses doing that when our businesses are needed most. It doesn't work, and then we're okay. I don't get it.
I personally think it's a huge problem, and I think some of their competitors are having a little bit of fun on Twitter every time that happens, because then you'll have the head of Kraken saying, "Hey, we're up, come trade here," and why not? Honestly, at the end of the day, like every single time there's any kind of real market movement, they just shut off. I don't understand.
So not to be like, I don't know, conspiracy person here, but like, is there any world where Coinbase benefits from it crashing? Because I can't explain why that would still be the case every single time. I'm not saying there is, but like, how do you not fix that?
I mean, the simplest explanation is they built it early on, and there are a couple like choke points in their like fundamental architecture, and they've never been willing to overhaul it, right? Yeah, like that's like, otherwise, like, just like bring on some more AWS servers or something. I think there's
it couldn't handle the XRP army, so
yeah.
I have a friend tuning in right now that has been trying to withdraw from Coinbase, and I think it's taking him longer than if he were to wait for OKX to reactivate withdraws. I don't know. I don't know what they need to do, but maybe they can use this thing wisely if they're not trading derivatives.
Not your keys, not your crypto.
I've yet to hear a good explanation as to why that's.
Well, they'll never say what's really happening because it's probably just too embarrassing. It's not like a good,
like someone's old server, like in a closet.
Because if it was fixable, it would be fixed, right? So if it was, but I don't think it's intentional, because it goes against everything they want to happen.
Sure. What happened? Do trades ever get stalled out and then execute differently, or no, that wouldn't happen?
I mean, it depends on the kind of trading you're doing, but I would expect for anybody else that's doing algorithmic trading to have certain parameters that would halt trading altogether if that connection drops. I think one thing that's very important that a lot of people don't think about is a lot of servers, not just for the exchanges, but even folks like BlockFi recently, they're all sitting on AWS or Google Cloud Services. And if those folks are having issues, then everybody's having issues. And I wonder if it has to do with that as well. And obviously, I don't think those companies are going to throw anybody under the bus, particularly the Amazons of the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's something people don't talk about. I thought it was a good observation. Like sewers are the base unlocking technology that allowed for cities, right? Like without them, like everyone just died. There's nothing else. And AWS is like the base foundation of angel investing and then of crypto on top. Like without AWS, you just wouldn't have any of it. Like it allowed companies to be much smaller and require less funding. You didn't have to buy a IBM mainframe for $2 million just to see if you could start coding. Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Someone asked a question that I always love getting this question. It's Luke Walsh. He says, what are people's positions if they feel comfortable saying basically, and like, have we bought or sold recently? And he's mentioning that he hasn't, but I always love answering it like this. I may or I may not own Bitcoin. That's kind of like my response. I may or may not own it, and let people kind of go from there. But you hear me talk about it enough that you probably can understand that I do. I'm not a fan personally of like the people, I don't know if you guys are, but like the people that like buy Bitcoin and then they like show their receipt on Twitter. I feel like that to me feels very problematic. It's like, hey, I have $100,000 in my house right now, and it's like you're basically, I don't know. Sure, like, you have
come hit my kneecaps with a hammer.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure you have it very secure, but like, I don't know why you want to let everybody know how much you have. It kind of reminds me of like when 50 Cent got angry with the government and started like showing his piles of cash. Those pictures, you guys can see that.
Or it reminds you of McAfee,
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't know.
Come visit me. I'm in Belize.
Yeah.
I honestly,
people like Pomp says, I think he says he has over 50% leverage in Bitcoin, right? There's a lot of people
50%.
Leverage isn't the right word you're looking for, John.
Or not leverage. Sorry.
I was like, he's 50x. I mean, he tweets like he's at least 100x.
Yeah.
I mean, more power to anybody with balls that big, but yeah.
I mean, I think in terms of like, going back to the original question, as to whether or not he should go in and buy now, it's entirely up to the investor to make a decision of how he's looking to investing in Bitcoin. Is this a long-term investment? Does he just want to kind of get his feet wet and go in and out? Because there was a wonderful opportunity to buy the dip, right before Thanksgiving, and now we're right back to 19,000. That's in my book, that's a great trade. If it's something that he's looking to do long term, what is his thesis for his investment? Does he want to diversify? Does he want to, maybe put that back out to him, and we'll answer a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, it's one thing I like to say is that it's always going to feel expensive no matter when you purchase it, right? Like I'm sure people who were smart enough to get in at $10 or in the cents were like, this is expensive. But if your plan is that long-term hodl, then I think you'll be okay, right? I don't think anybody who is sitting with Bitcoin right now, I don't think they're angry if they bought it at 9,000 versus 10,000.
I think one thing that people don't get over is they think they have to buy whole shares, right?
Yeah.
They don't understand fractional stuff. You can buy a SAT, right? I think it's completely disingenuous when people keep saying there's only 21 million Bitcoin ever. And I'm like, no, there's 2.1 quadrillion SATs. There's 2.1 times 10 to the, whatever, I can't remember, 14th or something, 16th SATs, right?
Hey, just SATs. We sell these shirts, by the way, if anybody wants them. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I asked my team the other day, everybody in the industry is in it, right? And we're keeping our heads down, we're building, and time flies. And you just look back to March, and if I were to tell you guys right now, would you buy Bitcoin at $4,000? Everybody would jump at that opportunity. We had that opportunity in March to go in, and everybody would buy, right? So it's hard to always look back and look at a price and think, okay, I should have bought then. I think it becomes more of like, what is your style and what are you really looking to get out of your investment? This holds true for everything else, not just cryptocurrencies. If you have a thesis and you're bullish in anything, and your fair price of that asset is above what it's trading now, then you should never worry about where you go in. If you do, then that's scared money. Scared money doesn't make you money.
Mm-hmm.
So one dynamic I would say is the rich are going to keep getting richer because the rich have access to negative interest rates, and they can pile into whatever they want that's going to appreciate. They can lever up and whatnot. So if you kind of have the thesis that the wealthy are going to look for alternative assets, then you can kind of front run them now, because there's the vast majority of the very wealthy have not gotten into crypto as an alternative asset. They've gotten into all sorts of other alternative assets, but this is the one that they haven't discovered yet, right? But they're the ones right in front of the money printer. It's not being aired. $500 isn't showing up in your bank account, but $100 million is showing up in Fortune 500 companies, right? And they're deploying it how they want to.
Right.
So that's one thesis for getting in now and just dollar cost averaging and whatnot. I think the other interesting meme you always see is like the lowest price per year of Bitcoin, right? So that's only something to think about too. You don't look at the max prices. You look at the floor price each time, and the thesis is, well, that that probably should keep going up if there's a bunch of money printing going on that makes dollars less valuable, and then there's a lot of institutions getting in that are not going to panic sell their large blocks. You'll still always get a bunch of panic selling, like in March, because people have to pay rent and they can't afford to lose their. They have $1,000 in Bitcoin, right? And they need, that's all they have. So they flush it because they need that $1,000 to buy food and pay the rent.
That is the wrong way to buy Bitcoin.
But there's always people that are going to hit market sell, right? In any asset class, there's always weekends that are speculating and can't stand the losses, and they're always going to hit market sell, and that's going to drive volatility in that market in the short term.
Right, and it has to do with kind of what your price setting and your incentives are overall. Because what's his name, Dave Portnoy, for example, he got in real quick and then sold real quick, but his mindset has kind of been more from a day trader standpoint, right? So in that day trading scenario, over those course a couple of days, it didn't really quite make sense. Of course, now it's easy to say, hey, you that $25,000 loss would have been, however many, basically a double gain overall. But you're right, it's difficult when it's depending on how much liquid assets or investable cash you have on hand, right? You gotta eat first. You gotta have a roof over your head first. All those sort of things.
I think he only eats pizza, so and it's only one bite. Everybody knows the rules.
Yeah,
he cracks me up. That guy cracks me up.
Yeah, Marie Dawson's asking for price predictions in the next year or two. It seems like the weight of the waves bring it down. So if you get a quick double in Bitcoin in 30 days or something, that graph gets too high, and you get that 10 or 20% correction on that. It doesn't run away like smaller coins.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't expect a 10x in a year.
I don't think
You
that's
see
the
10x in 1 year.
I would not expect that.
would not
I would
expect.
not expect it. Yeah,
I
the
think
Winklevoss guys, I think they said 25x in the next year.
I think Bitcoin's getting less risky, so you can't really depend on past price history. Like the risk profile of Bitcoin from 2010 to 2015 is much different than from 2015 to 2020. So right now it's a much surer bet. So you're not going to see like 100x returns in 2 years. Like that's just kind of outlandish, or at least I don't think you will.
Yeah.
But we only need 1% of global money to flow into Bitcoin, and then it'll be worth $12 trillion.
I mean,
Well,
people.
I think what becomes interesting is, again, kind of the whole global economy standpoint. I mean, it's to me, it's still crazy how everything is still going up, considering what it's Wall Street versus Main Street, right? And so, if for some reason the market tanks, a lot of people assume that there's like this inverse between stock market and Bitcoin, but I wouldn't be surprised if the market takes, Bitcoin is going to tank a little bit also. That's just my kind of thought. So it just depends like what really happens overall.
We saw that already in March.
Exactly my point.
For most of the year, I would say we were highly correlated to, the S&P 500. We track correlation very closely, and at the end of the day, if we see a huge pullback or if we see a huge crash, like March, as Mitchell said, it's very hard for it to go the other way.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of algorithmic traders or trading Bitcoin, right? So as soon as the momentum goes one way, like they're gonna slam it down. Like they have a lot of trades in there, right? And they're leveraged. So you will see the sell-offs will still be sharp.
And will you explain that for everybody? Will you and Carlos kind of explain that for everybody, how that works, like why they do that, short gains, like what is that?
Carlos, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to think about it is if you're placing a trade and you're using leverage, you're basically borrowing money to put the trade on, right? And if the market moves away from you, you get a margin call, and basically you get liquidated. And when that happens, and it happens usually at certain levels, it creates this ripple effect of other people that are also using leverage getting liquidated. And that's what's usually taking down, different levels and different places in the market where, let's just say 2 or 3 big whales get liquidated, and then you see all of these retail investors at the same time that are doing more than 10x. Just absolutely, it's like pulling the rug from your feet, and you just kind of come down. And that's what you see a lot in crypto. And 2 of the things that a lot of people forget to realize in crypto, one thing that we already talked about is fractional trading. But the second thing is, before BitMEX, there wasn't 100x places. You couldn't go anywhere and say, oh, I'm going to lever up, even 20x. Like that was very, very uncommon. So I think, one, the first people that start noticing and start getting hurt are the retail investors, because usually they're not as familiar. I think over time they learn, but at the same time, you lose customers, right? If they lost all their money, I think that leaves a sour taste in your mouth, and you probably won't go back to trading anymore. This year in particular, we happen to be sitting at home for the most part, and a lot of people have extra time. And I think $1,200 or $1,400 that we got from the government. So
no student loan payments.
And then you start day trading, and then you lever up, and some people are going to be taking profits and moving the market down, and then you're going to get margin called, and there's your money.
I think the other thing is that algorithms are often built to look at the exact same indicators and take the exact same actions. So they, you have 5 hedge fund shops all doing the algorithmic trading, and they all look at the same things, and then they all get a sell indication at the same time, and they all try to sell to each other against each other, and then it plunges down until enough people kind of step in to put in the bottom there, and then they'll turn around and now it's all buy indicators for the algorithms, right? And then they'll just buy up.
also, it's nice when you have an algorithm that's much faster than humans, right? So that's one other advantage that institutions have over retail. And until this year, most of crypto was retail driven. So, in a way, those are the guys that got hurt the most.
So the recent dip too, like the Thanksgiving dip, you saw 7 a.m. East Coast, people wake up and they freak out and they hit market sell, right? Like that's exactly what happened. It was clearly what happened, right? And East Coast of the United States probably holds whatever 10% of global crypto assets, right? So it's significant.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Well, we're probably going to wrap up here. So if you are watching, do us a couple favors. Please subscribe and like wherever you are. Give us your last questions and put them here. What are some closing thoughts you all want to leave people with as they kind of think about Bitcoin, what's happening in the world, what they're going to eat for dinner?
I guess from my stand, I think that a lot of people have a misconception that all of the crypto hedge funds are taking crazy bets and they have crazy drawdowns. We happen to carry a market neutral strategy. We're really trying to hit singles and doubles month over month. We're trying to minimize drawdowns. Over the course of this year, we've had 82% positive days with a max drawdown of less than 3%. November was a great month for us. We were up 8.6%, and since inception, we're up 107%. And we're not taking the same risk that some others are out there. So I would, if you're looking to invest in crypto, do your homework, do your research, and approach the folks that are putting amazing products out there. Not just ourselves, but there's other competitors that have different strategies, whether it is momentum-driven strategies, long-short strategies that have really put a great focus in minimizing drawdowns and kind of trying to control the volatility. So if you guys want to reach out to us, feel free to reach out to us via Twitter or our website, bkcoincapital.com.
Nice. Who else? I'll go real quick. I think kind of like one of my observations or something that I'm just super interested about is like, what does it take? So, we're talking a lot about from a consumer perspective, like what it takes to get in as a consumer. I'm curious, like, what is it for you to start thinking about Bitcoin from a company perspective, right? So like if you are a startup or you're any type of company and you have large amounts of cash on hand, at what point do you start to think about putting some of that into Bitcoin as a store of value? I think we'll start to see a lot more people, a lot more companies thinking that way, especially because what has recently happened with some of these companies. And then on this other side of it is like, at what point do companies or institutions start demanding payment in Bitcoin, right? It's like, hey, I don't want you to pay me cash anymore. I want you to pay me in Bitcoin. And what does that look like? So I think those are things that people got to be prepared for and, really just start thinking about, at least have a strategy, right? Doesn't mean that you're going to go ahead and start buying a big treasury or start storing in your treasury Bitcoin, but like, what is your strategy for when that happens or when that takes place? Because if you're not thinking about that at the moment that it does in fact happen or it should happen, you're basically too late or behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. So
okay.
I think some common misconceptions I always come into is that, crypto's anonymous and it's non-taxable and all those things. And that's not the case. The IRS is sending out tens of thousands.
Yeah. It's like further from the truth, right? Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So the US based exchanges are sending, 1099 K aggregate trading reports into, the IRS and the government. So they kind of know like your aggregate trading activity. Like if you trade back and forth one Bitcoin 50 times, it'll say there's $1 million of trading activity there. And that's what the government sees. They don't know what your profit and losses are, but they know you churned $1 million of value of Bitcoin, right? So that's something to think about in that in the 2021 year, April 15th, the 1040 form has a question above the fold front page that says yes or no, did you transact in digital assets this year? Like, so you can buy, it's not a taxable event, but if you sell, there is taxable event. So the IRS is going after people. They're starting audits. They went after McAfee, the billionaire who's going to lawyer up. So they're expecting to go to court. They're expecting to fight over that, right? So that's a big deal. So I think you are going to see, more compliance, more enforcement. A lot of our customers are buying multiple years, right? Like they bought for the first time this year to do their taxes, but they bought 4 years, like 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Like they're like, okay, this is the first year I'm actually worried about compliance, but I know I have to come clean because I have to get everything correct up to date, and I'll probably have to, refile things. But we've had customers find over $200,000 in cryptocurrency overpayments when they redid their taxes using our software. And we had one customer who got a letter from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division after he refiled his taxes for the third time that said, hey, we had a criminal investigation open on you, but since you refiled your taxes again, you're good. Thanks. We're going to close out the criminal investigation. They don't tell you if they're investigating you, but they'll tell you if they closed out investigation on you that was open. So
that's good news.
yeah. So something to think about. But yeah.
That's
Sure.
crazy, yeah.
Right,
yeah, I guess,
closing words, Mitchell, Justin.
yeah, my thoughts is just working in the business side and on working alongside with a lot of startups and companies in the space and interacting with a lot of other community members in the space too. I still think it's right now this, I guess, third leg up is exciting. I think that the industry is getting bigger and bigger from my perspective, and a lot of really interesting products in this place that it's making me feel more confident in the industry as a whole. So definitely encourage others that are still learning about it. Definitely do more of your research of anything that you are trying to get involved with. And but right now, it's still a good time to just at least learn what's happening in the crypto and blockchain and Bitcoin overall. So definitely encourage everybody that's watching to definitely do not ignore what's happening.
And it's fun. You get to meet cool people and see them grow over the years. Like I think I've known all of you for like 3-4 years, directly related to crypto.
Well, 20 years in crypto years.
Yeah, yeah. We've had some battles, haven't we, Mitchell?
That is an understatement, but yes. So yeah, closing thoughts from me. I would say don't think that Bitcoin is everything about the crypto market, because there's so much more out there that's happening with DeFi, with Ethereum, with all the other protocols that are adding all this new functionality and all this new potential to the market. And beyond that, that's also where a lot of the returns are happening. Like you might see your holdings double in Bitcoin, but the recommendations that we've made in our portfolio were up 560% over 18 months. So if you're willing to take on more risk, obviously your losses will be steeper, but you can only lose 100% of your investment.
Unless you lever up.
560%.
Yeah.
Or 560%. So you decide. Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate you joining me this evening. I think it's something we're going to do more often. So, it's when you can't hang out, like this is the type of conversation we might have, at a bar or at an event. So I'm glad we got a chance to talk.
Awesome.
No, great to see you all again.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please make sure that you're liked and subscribed wherever you're listening to this. So if you're on the YouTube, please subscribe. Please share this. And you can also follow us on Twitter at TFLabs_, and I'm at JG Products on Twitter. Does anybody want to shout out their Twitters real quick so people can pay attention to where you're at?
Yeah, at Mitchell Moose.
I'll just give you at BK Coin Capital.
I think Justin's on a call. Justin's at Hackpreneur.
Hackpreneur. You can find it on the tweet from TF Labs.
Nice.
Yeah. And at Patrick Larson and zenledger.io.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Give us some comments and likes, and we'll see y'all soon. And we actually do sell these shirts for real, just sats if you like. So, all right. See you guys. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, guys. Take care.